You know, whenever I stand in front of a street-side wok in Bangkok, watching flames leap up like they're trying to escape the pan itself, there's one dish that always feels like it carries more than just aroma. Pad Thai. At first glance, it looks simple, almost ordinary. Stir-fried noodles, a bit of sauce, some shrimp, crushed peanuts, lime on the side. But the moment you dig even slightly deeper, it stops being just food. It starts feeling like a coded message from history. A dish that didn't just happen. It was shaped, guided, and pushed into existence by political force, cultural identity, and a very specific moment in time when Thailand was trying to redefine itself in front of the world. Most people assume Pad Thai is ancient, something passed down from royal kitchens or old village traditions stretching back centuries. That assumption feels natural because Thai cuisine, in general, carries this aura of deep heritage. But Pad Thai breaks that expectation completely. The more you investigate it, the more you realize you're not dealing with a centuries-old recipe. You're dealing with a 20th century invention, or more precisely, a carefully engineered national identity project that just happens to taste incredible. To understand it properly, you have to step back into Thailand in the late 1930s. At that time, the country was undergoing massive transformation. It was still widely known internationally as Siam until the name was officially changed to Thailand in 1939 under the leadership of Field Marshal Plaek Phibun Songkram, a military-backed prime minister with a very strong vision of modernization. This wasn't just political administration. This was identity construction at a national scale. Phibun believed that if Thailand wanted to survive and stand strong in a rapidly changing world, it needed unity. Not just in governance or language, but even in everyday life. Clothing, behavior, and yes, even food. This is where things start getting interesting. Because when governments try to reshape identity, they don't always do it through speeches or laws alone. Sometimes they do it through something far more subtle. Something you eat every day without thinking. Food becomes messaging. And in this case, noodles became part of a national conversation. Now here's where the story takes a twist that surprises most people. Rice noodles, the very foundation of Pad Thai, were not originally seen as uniquely Thai in origin. Flat rice noodles and stir-fried noodle dishes had already been present in Thailand for a long time, especially through Chinese immigrant communities, particularly Teochew traders who brought their culinary traditions with them. One of the key linguistic clues is even in the name Kwai Teo, which comes from the Teochew Chinese term for flat rice noodles. These communities had been cooking stir-fried noodle dishes in various forms across Southeast Asia long before Pad Thai was standardized. So what happened next wasn't the invention of noodles themselves, but something more strategic. The Thai government at the time began a cultural standardization effort. If different groups within the country were eating different styles of noodle dishes, and many of those dishes were strongly associated with Chinese heritage, then how do you turn that into something that feels nationally unified? The answer was adaptation, branding, and standardization. Pad Thai emerged in this environment not as a random creation, but as a curated dish, a controlled culinary identity, a version of stir-fried noodles that could represent Thailand on the street level, in markets, and eventually on the global stage. The idea wasn't to erase influences, but to reorganize them into something that felt distinctly Thai in presentation and flavor profile. And this is where the dish becomes fascinating from a culinary science perspective. Because Pad Thai isn't just about ingredients, it's about balance. The flavor structure is incredibly deliberate. You have tamarind bringing sourness, palm sugar adding sweetness, fish sauce contributing salt and umami, and sometimes dried shrimp layering in deeper savory notes. This combination isn't accidental. It reflects a broader Southeast Asian flavor philosophy, but in Pad Thai it is refined into a very recognizable formula. Sweet, sour, salty, slightly smoky, all balanced in a way that hits multiple taste receptors at once. Think about that for a second. This isn't just cooking. It's engineered flavor harmony designed to be universally appealing. There's also an interesting economic and practical layer to the story. During the period when the dish was promoted, Thailand was dealing with various resource pressures, including the need to optimize domestic food consumption patterns. Promoting noodle-based dishes had practical advantages because noodles were affordable, quick to cook, and could be sold efficiently by street vendors. This aligns with another major shift happening at the time: the rise of street food culture as a structured, encouraged part of urban life. Vendors were even guided towards standardized preparation methods so the dish could remain consistent no matter where you ate it. Imagine that level of influence for a moment. A government not just endorsing a dish but shaping how it is cooked, where it is sold, and how it is presented to citizens. It turns everyday eating into a subtle act of national alignment. Over time, pad thai became more than a domestic identity marker. It became a diplomatic tool in an unexpected way. Fast forward to the early 2000s, and Thailand launches what is often referred to as the Global Thai Initiative. The idea was simple but powerful: increase the number of Thai restaurants around the world to strengthen cultural influence through cuisine. Pad Thai was the perfect ambassador for this mission. It was easy to recognize, adaptable to different ingredients, and most importantly, it was immediately enjoyable to international audiences unfamiliar with Thai flavors. This is where food starts crossing into what political scientists call soft power. Instead of projecting influence through force or economics alone, you project it through culture, through things people willingly consume and enjoy. Pad Thai quietly becomes one of Thailand's most effective cultural exports, appearing in restaurants from New York to London to Sydney, often becoming the gateway dish for people discovering Thai cuisine for the first time. But what's even more interesting is how Pad Thai continues to evolve outside Thailand. In different countries, you'll find variations that reflect local tastes. Some versions are sweeter, some more acidic, some heavily loaded with protein, others simplified for fast preparation. And yet, the identity of the dish remains intact. That is rare in culinary history. Many traditional dishes lose their identity when globalized, but Pad Thai seems to absorb adaptation without losing recognition. Now here's a detail that often gets overlooked. Even though Pad Thai was standardized in the 20th century, that doesn't mean it appeared out of nowhere. Thai cuisine has always been a hybrid system influenced by trade, migration, and regional diversity. The genius of Pad Thai wasn't invention from nothing, but consolidation. It took existing culinary elements, especially from Chinese-influenced noodle cooking traditions, and restructured them into a unified national symbol. That distinction matters because it changes how you understand food history in general. Very few dishes are truly pure inventions. Most are evolutions shaped by movement of people, trade routes, and cultural blending. Pad Thai just happens to be one of the rare cases where that evolution was deliberately guided by state policy rather than slow cultural drift. And then there's the sensory experience itself. Because regardless of politics or history, Pad Thai survives because it works on a human level. The texture of softened rice noodles absorbing sauce, the crunch of peanuts against the softness of egg, the freshness of bean sprouts cutting through richness, the squeeze of lime waking everything up at the last second. It's not just balanced, it's interactive. You don't just eat it, you adjust it. You customize heat, acidity, and texture with condiments at the table. That interactive nature is part of why it feels so personal even though it was standardized at a national level. So when you sit with a plate of Pad Thai in front of you, especially from a street vendor where the wok is still hot enough to shimmer the air above it, you're actually experiencing layers of history at once. Immigration patterns, political modernization, national identity construction, global cultural export strategy. And underneath all of that, a very human desire to create something delicious and shareable. It's easy to reduce food to just taste, but some dishes refuse to stay simple. Pad Thai is one of them. It carries the weight of a nation's transformation, but it still shows up on the street like it's just there to make your day better. And maybe that's the most interesting part of all. Because despite its political origins and strategic design, it succeeded in doing something no policy document can guarantee. It became loved. And in the end, that's what makes it more than history. It makes it alive.